Hi dear friends, welcome to the CSS Learners Academy. Today I am going to talk about the recent clashes that we see between the Indian and the Chinese armies on the line of actual control. Line of actual control is the border between India and China. It extends up to 3,500 kilometers and it is one of the world's largest unmarked border. It is located at around 19,000 feet above the sea level. So today we will try to discuss that what happened and why we see this escalation on such a time period when the world is already trying to fight the pandemic of COVID-19. Who is responsible for that, and is there only the two players, China and India, or some external factors are on the go as well? So we will try to find out the background. Is this something new, the border dispute between India and China? It is, as Indian media is putting it, cause of CPEC, or the other reasons are responsible for the issue as well. So as per the reports, the issue started on the 9th of May 2020 when there was a standoff on the Nakula Pass in Sikkim along the line of actual control, when the Patrol Party of People's Liberation Army was stopped by the Indian soldiers. So as the name Sikkim has been mentioned here, so let me first clarify that we can divide the Indian-Chinese border into three different points of tensions. On the eastern border, we see Arunachal Pradesh and Sikkim. Arunachal Pradesh is a territory which was given the status of a state by the Indian government after the 1962 Sino-Indian War, whereas Sikkim is the area of Tibet. Then there is the central border of Himachal Pradesh. On the western border, we see Aksai Chin, the area of Ladakh. Along these three borders, now we will discuss according to a timeline that when the issues were emerged, how they were controlled, who was responsible for them. And then we will try to understand the recent skirmishes being going on the Sino-Indian border. So the question, why this current escalation is so dangerous? Because it started in the Galwan Valley region of Aksai Chin, which was the flashpoint of Sino-Indian War back in 1962. Now this recent escalation is important because the Indians, they have already constructed an advanced landing ground back in 2008 in the area of Daulat Beg Holding, and most recently in last year they have constructed a road which is connecting to the Daulat Beg Holding, and it will give a huge military advantage to the Indians over Chinese. Obviously, China do not want India to have that military advantage in the already disputed area. Another important development is the Indian construction of Colonel Shivang Richard Setu, which is the India's highest altitude all-weather bridge. This development at the Pankong Song Lake and Nakula seem to have triggered the PLA, who made incursion 1 to 3 kilometers inside what India claims to be their territory. So the PLA has moved 5,000 troops close to the line of actual control. But these activities, the construction activities along the border, this is not the only reason. China is also unhappy when Indians revoke Article 370 of the Constitution, and it especially when they made Ladakh a union territory of India. Aksai Chin is a part of Ladakh, which China claims to be their own territory. So let's go back to the flashpoint where this issue was actually started, and then we will just precisely discuss what happens in different years, and at the end we will discuss why this is happening now and what strategic implications this issue can have if the situation escalates. Sino-Indian border disputes goes back before the independence of India in 1947 or even the independence of China in 1949. It actually started in the year 1903 when the British commander Frankie's young husband, along with the troops of British India, he conquered the area of Tibet. Before this invasion, Tibet was considered to be a part of the larger Chinese territory. Now, the British ambitions were clear that they wanted to have a strategic importance over this larger region of Himalayas. The southern flank of the Tibet was already occupied when the British occupied Burma and Sikkim. And now this strategic location of Tibet, which was invaded in 1903 and was occupied by the British forces. Obviously, Chinese retaliated and the situations were escalating in the following years. Therefore, in 1914, we see a Simla Agreement. That was a kind of agreement, a kind of ceasefire that the British initiated, and they wanted that the situation may be diffused with the engagement of all parties. It was an effort to mark the borders between Tibet, China and India. But as Chinese were not going to accept any kind of arrangement other than giving the status of Tibet back what it was before the 1903 invasion, therefore the Chinese walk out of the meetings. And then the agreement, Simla Agreement, was signed, which is actually a kind of bilateral agreement between the Tibet and the British authorities. And the border that was demarcated, it is known as the McMahon Line. China obviously did not accept the McMahon Line, and it became the bone of contention in 1950s after the independence of both countries. So we can say that McMahon Line is another demarcated border like the Durand Line, which the British colonial legacy left for the countries that they have ruled. So we see the first clash in 1950, and then the following years we see different type of clashes emerging, both the sides using their own influence on the area. And then we see a further escalation in 1959 with an uprising in the area of Tibet. After that, soon the situation escalated so much that it turned out to be an all-out war between China and India in 1962. In the war of 1962, Indians faced a devastating war and further humiliation from the international community as well. The territory of Aksai Chin was also lost to China, and they have the control of that area until this moment. All of these incidents that happened, how Indian military was intended to go to war with China, whereas the Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru was not in favor of a war. What happened, what triggered the war, and why Indians faced such a humiliating defeat is mentioned in the Henderson Brooks Bhagat report. That report was prepared in 1963, 1 year after the war, by the two Indian Army officers, Lieutenant General Henderson Brooks and Brigadier General Parmendra Singh Bhagat. The report was considered as a highly classified report that contains a very sensitive information, and it was never made public by the Indians. However, an Australian journalist, Neville Maxwell, published a report on his website, the reports containing 126 pages. Around 3,300 Indian soldiers were killed in that war, and the area of Aksai Chin and Arunachal Pradesh were taken by the Chinese. Later on, as a result of a ceasefire, the Chinese army moved back from Arunachal Pradesh, but the area of Aksai Chin is still under the control of China. So if you are interested, the report can be provided to you via the given email. Then we see another clash in 1967, especially in the areas of Natula and Chola. And then again in 1987 we see a military standoff. In 1987, the Indian Army's movements started in the Arunachal Pradesh Tawang region. They were seen as the provocation by Chinese, and they threatened war with India. Now, India was already working on fortifying the defense in that area under the government of Indira Gandhi in 1980. Therefore, India reacted sharply to the threat of war, and they granted Arunachal Pradesh a status of a state under Rajiv Gandhi in 1987. Indian and Chinese troops came face to face in places like Sulula and Bangla by April. Now, after that, after the current government of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, we have seen that the situation has been escalated several times. It was a clash was erupted in 2013, then in 2014, 2015, and especially in 2017. In the year 2017, Indian Armed Forces and PLA were involved in a 73-day standoff over the construction of road by Chinese in the Doklam Plateau claimed both by China as well as Bhutan. India supports Bhutan's claim over the disputed area and it sent 270 troops to stop their Chinese counterparts. The construction of the road was stopped and the troops were mutually withdrawn. Now the question here is why India was so sensitive about Doklam. Because Doklam is strategically located close to the Siliguri corridor, which is also known as Chicken's Neck, and it connects mainland India with its northeastern states. It is a vulnerable point for India. Then we see another situation in September 2019. Face-off between the Indian and Chinese soldiers took place on the northern bank of Pangong So Lake just 2 days before the Indian Army planned to conduct a massive war game exercise involving all its arms and services to test its new integrated battle groups in Arunachal Pradesh in September 2019. And then we are seeing these current clashes now in the year 2020. So we have seen that there is a history of clashes between India and China over the territorial claims. But when it comes to the territorial claims, we have seen the aggressiveness of India on all her borders. We have seen in the case of Pakistan, in the same case of China, and in the case of Nepal. Bhutan, which is a much smaller country as compared to India, both economically and militarily, they have already agreed and made a pact with India, and India made that pact for the defense of Bhutan, which is actually not the defense of Bhutan, but the defense of their own strategic interests. But the current situation has escalated, especially when the Indians revoked the status of Kashmir by revoking Article 370 of the Constitution. Now the areas of Srinagar, Jammu and Ladakh are basically the areas occupied by India since 1947. Along with these areas, they have declared Ladakh to be the union territory of India, where they plan to accommodate more and more Hindu population and to change the statistics if the plebiscite happens anytime according to the United Nations. It would give an advantage to India. Now in the area of Ladakh, this territory known as Aksai Chin is already present, and that's why it is a flashpoint for China. Why this opportunity at such a moment? Because China is already facing enough criticism because of the COVID-19. The Western world, which is already trying to push China back, because China is the emerging economy and they are not emerging because of their military, but they are emerging with the power of economy. They are not growing by defeating or interfering in the affairs of other countries, but they are growing by sharing the economic prosperity with other countries as well. Now we have seen in the case of COVID-19 that China was forced to agree to an impartial probe into the virus source and the role of the WHO's response to the pandemic after a resolution seeking the same was backed by 120 countries including India. India's new leadership role as the chair of executive board of WHO may have also peeved China and forced it to show assertiveness back home amid huge economic losses due to COVID-19. So here we see that India is also trying to confront China on the international arena as well. Whereas as far as China is concerned, we have seen that the Chinese have always tried to de-escalate the tensions. I mean, in 2014, we see that China also offered India to sit down together and to discuss the border dispute. Then we see that in 2016, China included India in the Shanghai Cooperation Organization because they do not want any kind of tensions in the region. Chinese believes that if the region is peaceful, this is the only way that all of the countries can grow together. The same is the case in 2019 when the president of China, Xi Jinping, visited India himself and then again tried to make sense to his Indian counterparts. But the Indian aggressiveness, or we can say that the Indian hysteria of controlling all the or to occupy all the territory of Kashmir is growing further and further. India is not only intervening in the peace process in Afghanistan, but it is also creating tensions for the countries who are involved in that peace process. And India is also a new partner of United States in the application or the implementation of the new Indo-Pacific Strategy. In the year 2017, June 2017, we see the Doklam crisis, and after a few months, we see that the President Donald Trump announced the Indo-Pacific Strategy. Indo-Pacific Strategy is solely depending on the US-Indo partnership to confront China. For that reason, they are already working against CPEC. I mean, India and United States trying to sabotage CPEC as fast as possible, but we have seen their provocations in the case of China. We believe that both countries, who are the major nuclear powers in the region and the most populous countries of the world, they should try to de-escalate the tensions. As well as I would like to say that the US should reconsider so much dependence on Indians, because India has never been a reliable partner to any country. To the international community, I would like to say that it is the time to observe the Indian aggressiveness with her neighbors. We should try to find out a way to control that aggressiveness, because it can turn all the region into an unwanted situation. Indian people, they are very talented people, and most of them are secular or the liberal people who believe in the prosperity and who disagree with the current motives or moves of the BJP government. The current moves of the BJP government in the case of citizenship bill on the internal level, or in the cases of revoking Article 370 for Kashmir on the international level, and now these border skirmishes with Pakistan, with China and with Nepal. They are not something new, but they are enough to make a clear understanding of what India is going to be if we do not stop them. So that was the lecture for today, and I would like to say that if you have not subscribed to the channel until this moment, I would like you to subscribe to the channel, because in this section of current affairs analysis, I am going to analyze the current situation, whether it is on the national level or international level, and I will try to describe it in a precise way so that it may be helpful for you if you want to quote the same in the papers. Thank you very much. Stay blessed. Allah Hafiz.